It's like it's in LA. It's never gotten the respect.
A man weighing over 350 pounds walked into surgery in 2005. 10 months later, he had lost 145 pounds and reversed a deadly disease. But Gil Gerard's transformation came after years of cocaine addiction, failed marriages, and lost opportunities worth $1 million. From TV icon to health disaster to comeback story, his journey was documented on camera for the world to see. And just when life finally seemed steady, something unexpected happened that no one saw coming. This is the real story behind Buck Rogers. Gil Gerard came into the world as Gilbert Cyril Gerard on January 23, 1943, in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he grew up as the youngest of 3 sons in a home that never felt rich. His father, Frank, worked as a salesman, his mother, Gladys, taught at a college, and money worries sat in the background even when nobody said them out loud. Still, his mother kept the house on a tight line. She pushed discipline. She pushed education. And in a place like that, a kid learns fast that confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build. So when he landed at Little Rock Catholic High School for Boys, 2 sides of him started showing at the same time. One side was athletic. The other side wanted a stage. He found out he could compete, and he found out he could perform. And that mix gave him a kind of bold energy that people noticed. Even with limited resources, his mother kept him involved in activities, almost like she knew that staying busy would keep him steady. That steady push became his early armor, and it quietly set the base for bigger choices later. Then, in 1960, when he was 17, he went even further in a direction that surprised people. He attended Mary Knoll Seminary in Glen Ellen, Illinois, aiming for the priesthood, which sounds like the opposite of a show business dream. But he did not leave the stage behind. He leaned into it. And that is where something clicks. Because while he was chasing faith, he was also chasing that feeling of being watched and understood. At the seminary, he played Harold Hill in an all-male production of The Music Man. It was not just acting. He had to sing. He had to dance. He had to carry charm like it was a weapon. Harold Hill is basically a con man who wins a town over with music, and Gil learned how to own a room by making people believe him. That role did not just entertain the crowd. It told him, in a very loud way, that he could be a leading man. After that, he tried to walk the safe road again. In the early 1960s, he enrolled at the University of Central Arkansas, back when it was Arkansas State Teachers College, and he set his aim on chemistry. It looked stable. It looked respectable. But the longer he stayed near lab coats and textbooks, the more he felt the pull of something else. By 1967, he dropped out before graduating. It was the kind of decision that can echo in your head for years, because it leaves you with a hole where a diploma should be. And later, when acting became real, that missing piece would still follow him, especially in moments when people expected a neat resume. Even so, he did not fall apart. Right after leaving school, he got work as an industrial chemist at a chemical firm tied to Arkansas Governor Winthrop Rockefeller, and between 1967 and 1971, he climbed fast. He became a regional manager. He earned respect. He looked, from the outside, like a man who had locked down his future. Then came the moment that forced him to choose what kind of person he wanted to be. He was offered a vice presidency, and the only requirement was to go for a master's degree. That sounds simple until you remember the truth he could not hide forever. He did not have the college diploma they assumed he had. So he faced a fork in the road. He could fake it, or he could walk away. He resigned. That choice shocked people around him, but it also exposed something important about him. He would rather lose the job than live inside a lie. And once he made that cut, the next move was almost like a jump off a cliff. In the early 1970s, he left the secure life behind and went to New York City to study drama. The dream sounded big, but the daily life was rough. To survive, he drove a taxi cab at night, taking classes and then taking fares, trying to hold two lives in the same hands. And then one night in 1970, the kind of moment happens that sounds too perfect until you remember how random life can be. He picked up a passenger who listened to him talk about acting and struggle, and before the man got out, he told Gil to show up at the set of Love Story, which was filming in New York. Gil actually went. He landed a tiny spot as an extra. The role was cut, but he got his first IMDb credit. And more than that, he got proof that doors can open in strange ways if you keep moving toward them. So he kept moving, even when the work was not glamorous. Over the next stretch of years, he became a familiar face in a way that paid the bills, but also boxed him in. He drove a cab for years, and he appeared in nearly 400 television commercials, turning into one of the most active pitchmen of that time. In the mid-1970s, he became a spokesman for Ford Motor Company, and suddenly he was in living rooms everywhere. It gave him money, it gave him stability, but it also gave him a label that stuck like glue: the commercial king. He was everywhere, yet casting people still did not see him as the guy for deeper roles. That was the strange trap: constant work, but not the work he truly wanted. Even so, he kept building a real acting resume piece by piece. In 1971, he played Scott in Some of My Best Friends Are, a gay-themed film at a time when that kind of story was still rare and risky. Then, in 1974, he appeared as Donald Forbes in Man on a Swing, directed by Frank D. Gilroy. They were not huge parts, but they were steps, and sometimes a career is just a long line of steps that only make sense once you look back. By 1977, the steps started to connect faster. He showed up on Hawaii Five-0 in the episode The Ninth Step as Marty Cobb, a former cop and recovering alcoholic, and the episode aired in October 1977. It let him play a man with cracks in him, not just a clean smile, and that matters when you are trying to escape a shallow image. Around that same time, he also appeared on Little House on the Prairie and The Handyman as Chris Nelson, a wandering carpenter who stays with the Ingalls family. That episode aired on October 3, 1977, and it became one of those turning point moments that actors pray for without even knowing it is coming. Michael Landon saw him and liked what he saw. Landon did not just compliment him. He cast him as the lead in the TV movie Killing Stone in 1978. That role was a big shift. In Killing Stone, Gil played Gil Stone, a man wrongfully imprisoned for a decade who is trying to rebuild his life after getting out. The story gave him intensity. It gave him grit, and it put him in a frame where producers could finally picture him carrying a project instead of just supporting one. And that is where the road starts pointing toward the role people still link to his name. But before that iconic casting landed, he made another risky move that showed how badly he wanted control over his own path. From 1973 to 1976, he had already become a steady face in daytime TV as Dr. Alan Stewart on NBC's The Doctors, appearing in more than 300 episodes. The schedule was brutal, but the paycheck was a relief after all the survival years. Still, soap work can feel like a loop, and he did not want to spend his whole life inside a loop. So after that run, he pushed toward something bigger. In 1977, he formed Prudhomme Productions with a writer-producer partner and helped create his own film. That film was Hooch in 1977. He co-wrote it, produced it, and starred as Eddie Joe Rogers, a moonshiner in Appalachia, driving a classic El Camino while dodging law enforcement and even the mafia. He put his own money into it, which is the kind of gamble that can destroy you if it goes wrong. It was not a massive blockbuster, but it proved a point that mattered. He could lead. He could build. He could take a project from idea to screen. And once that door cracked open, more doors followed. After Hooch, he co-starred with Yvette Mimieux in the TV movie Ransom for Alice. In 1977, playing Clint Kirby, a government agent in 1890s Seattle, trying to rescue kidnapped teenage girls pulled into a prostitution ring. Later that same year, he appeared in Airport 77 as Frank Powers, the love interest for Lee Grant's character, stepping into a bigger mainstream spotlight. It was the kind of credit that made people take him more seriously, and it helped push him out of the only commercials shadow. He was also showing up in primetime crime drama at the right moment. In 1977, he appeared in 2 episodes of Beretta, including Dear Tony, where he played Steve, a young mob collector stuck in a deadly situation. Sharing screen time on a hit show like that added weight to his name, and it made his momentum feel real, not temporary. So by the time Killing Stone aired in 1978, it all lined up. The guest roles had built his range. The commercials had built his camera comfort. The soap opera had built his stamina. The self-financed film had built his nerve. And then, in 1979, that momentum turned into the offer that changed everything, when the team behind Buck Rogers in the 25th Century saw what he could do and offered him the title role. Gil Gerard almost never became Buck Rogers. In fact, he tried hard not to. When the role was offered, he turned it down. Then he turned it down again. At the time, he did not trust television sci-fi, and he did not believe this project would matter. Still, the producers kept calling. They reminded him the studio had put $3.5 million into the pilot, an enormous gamble for that era. They warned him that chances like this did not come twice. Eventually, fear crept in. Fear of missing the one role that could change everything. So he said yes, without believing it would last. Then something strange happened. The pilot was released in theaters in March 1979, and instead of quietly disappearing, it exploded. It pulled in more than $21 million across North America. Suddenly, Gil Gerard, a former cab driver, was everywhere. He was Captain William Buck Rogers, a NASA pilot frozen for 500 years and dropped into the 25th century. Fame arrived fast, but confidence did not follow. Even as the applause grew louder, Gerard quietly doubted the show's future. That doubt never left him. It only grew stronger as the weeks passed. NBC quickly ordered a full series, and from 1979 to 1981, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century aired 37 episodes over 2 seasons. Gerard's Buck was different from what audiences were used to. He was sarcastic. He joked under pressure. He talked back. He was a little rough around the edges. For some viewers, it felt fresh. For others, it felt wrong. Behind the scenes, Gerard was already unhappy. He felt the stories jumped around too much. One episode here, another idea there, too many explosions, too many fights, not enough care for character or logic. He said later that the show looked impressive, but felt hollow underneath, and that feeling started poisoning everything. As time went on, Gerard pushed harder for control. He believed Buck had to remain the hero at all costs. If a script hinted that someone else might save the day, he pushed back. During the second season finale, Escape from Wedded Bliss, he refused to let Wilma Deering be the one who rescued Buck. In his mind, Buck could never be secondary. He vetoed scenes. He demanded rewrites. Writers wanted teamwork. Gerard wanted a lone hero. The balance broke, and tension settled in for good. The fights grew uglier. Gerard clashed with story editor Ann Collins and script supervisor Alan Brennert so badly that both eventually quit mid-season. Scripts stalled, scenes were delayed, NBC began to panic. At one point, the network even warned Gerard that legal action was possible if the disruptions continued. From their view, he was sabotaging production. From his view, he was protecting the character. Neither side backed down, and the atmosphere on set turned cold and hostile. Then Gerard said the quiet part out loud. In November 1980, he gave an interview to Starlog magazine and admitted he hoped the show would be canceled. He called it a wise-ass joke fest and said he dreaded another season like the first. Fans were stunned. Networks were furious. Actors were not supposed to talk like that about their own hit shows. Gerard feared being trapped forever as Buck Rogers. He feared typecasting more than cancellation. Those words followed him, and many believe they helped push NBC toward ending the series in April 1981 without even producing a proper finale. Ironically, while the show was unraveling, Buck Rogers merchandise was booming. Between 1979 and 1980, Mego released action figures, ships, and play sets that flew off shelves. Boxed sets that once cost a few dollars now sell for $85 to $175. Loose figures still fetch $35 to $55. The brand was strong, but the man at its center was miserable. Gerard refused comedic lines, insisting Buck was not a clown. He demanded cuts to anything that made the hero look silly. Executives warned him repeatedly. The audience loved the camp. Gerard wanted seriousness. The gap never closed. On screen, Buck and Wilma carried clear romantic tension, but off-screen, there was none. Erin Gray was married. Gerard had recently remarried. Their relationship stayed professional, but the working bond weakened as Gerard pushed for more stunts and insisted on doing many himself. Minor injuries piled up. Frustration spread. Cast members felt shut out. The set grew divided, and collaboration became a chore instead of a thrill. One moment captured everything. The pilot included a disco-style twinkle-toe dance performed by Buck. Fans loved it. Gerard hated it. He demanded reshoots and fought to remove it, believing it damaged Buck's image. That battle became a warning sign. Control issues were not coming. They were already there. When Buck Rogers was canceled in 1981, the fall hit hard. The second season had already been shortened to 11 episodes after the 1980 actors' strike. Each episode cost nearly $1 million, an enormous expense at the time. Ratings were still strong, but morale was gone. Gerard's public frustration made the decision easier for NBC. The role that made him famous ended with bitterness instead of celebration. After the show ended, Gerard's life spiraled. By the mid-1980s, following a painful divorce from actress Connie Sellecca, he fell deep into cocaine and alcohol abuse. Fame had lifted him quickly, but it had not prepared him for the crash. By 1988, his weight had climbed past 300 pounds. Health scares followed. Diabetes, heart failure risks, lost roles, missed chances. By his own admission, nearly $1 million in opportunities slipped away. His personal life reflected the chaos. His first marriage in 1967 lasted 8 months. His second, starting in 1970, ended for good in 1977 after repeated separations. His 1979 marriage to Connie Sellecca brought a son, Gib, in 1981, but the divorce in 1987 shattered him. 2 more marriages followed and collapsed just as quickly. Each breakup left him more unstable, more exhausted, and more lost. Still, he kept working. TV movies, short runs on shows like Sidekicks from 1986 to 1987. From the outside, it looked steady. Inside, it was survival. He later admitted that work distracted him from his addictions but never healed them. By the late 1980s, his weight reached nearly 350 pounds. Compulsive eating replaced control. Fame was gone. Structure was gone. He blamed the sudden loss of Buck Rogers for triggering the collapse. In 2005, he underwent mini gastric bypass surgery. By 2007, during the Discovery Health documentary Action Hero Makeover, he had lost 145 pounds in 10 months. The transformation was dramatic, but the damage remained. Years of abuse had taken their toll, physically and financially. His net worth had been eroded by about $1 million, and his health would never fully recover. Gil Gerard's life turned into a real fight with his own body, long after the world had already stamped him as Buck Rogers. For years, he kept working, even when the spotlight was not as loud as it used to be. In 1989, he showed up as Dr. Paul Petrillo on Nightingales, and in 1990, he played Dr. John Harding in the CBS series EARTH Force, a show that ran for 6 episodes and was filmed in Queensland, Australia. The reviews were rough, but the job was steady, and steady work mattered. It kept him moving forward when fame starts to feel like something that happened to someone else. Then he leaned into the tough action image people already had in their heads. In 1992, he hosted Code 3 on Fox, a reality series that followed firefighters racing into emergencies across the United States. It fit him. He sounded like a man who could guide you through danger without blinking. That hosting job became a bridge between the earlier fame and the years where Hollywood can quietly forget you if you slow down. Even when the bigger roles did not come, he stayed busy in the way working actors often do. He popped up in voice work and smaller TV parts, including Fish Police in 1992 and an episode of Brotherly Love in 1996, where he played Big Mike. In 1997, he did 6 episodes of Days of Our Lives as Major Dodd, and in 1998, he appeared on Pacific Blue as Raymond Annandale. None of this was the kind of work that makes headlines, but it kept him present. It kept food on the table. It kept his name alive in the corners of TV, where loyal viewers notice everything. At the same time, the direct-to-video world became his new home. In Fugitive Mind in 1999, he played Carl Gardner, a government agent in a sci-fi action story about brainwashing and an assassination plot. In Air Rage in 2001, he played Victor Quinn, a Marine officer caught inside a hostage rescue mission that spins into revenge and chaos. And later, in Dire Wolf in 2009, released as Dino Wolf, he played Cole Hendry in a creature movie built around a genetically modified monster that escapes and tears through everything. These films were low budget and fast-moving, but he kept showing up. That choice told its own story. He was not waiting for the perfect moment. He was taking what was there and surviving. But behind the work, his health was turning into an emergency. Gil Gerard talked about a lifelong struggle with obesity that tightened around him in the early 1980s. By 1988, his weight was over 300 pounds. He also battled addictions to alcohol and cocaine. And when he stepped away from those, compulsive eating filled the gap. His weight eventually climbed past 350 pounds. Along with that came serious problems, including type 2 diabetes and metabolic issues that kept stacking up. He later said those struggles cost him close to $1 million in lost work, because producers get nervous when an actor cannot handle the schedule, the travel, the long hours, and the physical demands. So in October 2005, at age 63, he made a choice that changed the rest of his life. He underwent mini-gastric bypass surgery, a procedure linked to Dr. Rutledge, and it became the center of a very public transformation. Discovery Health documented the process for a special that later aired in 2007 called Action Hero Makeover. The numbers from that period still sound unreal when you say them out loud. He lost 20 pounds in 5 days. Then he lost 80 pounds in 3 months. By 10 months after surgery, he had lost 145 pounds and weighed 205 pounds. Along the way, he reversed his severe type 2 diabetes diagnosis, and the show highlighted how quickly his health markers improved, even in the early recovery. The procedure itself was explained in plain, blunt terms. Roughly 6 feet of the small intestine was bypassed, and the stomach was connected directly to the remaining bowel using staples and sutures. The goal was simple: less absorption, less intake, a hard reset. And the result was not just about how he looked. It meant relief from insulin injections. It meant energy coming back. It meant waking up and feeling like he had time again. What made it hit people even harder was his openness. He did not pretend it was easy. He did not sell it like a miracle without scars. That raw honesty, mixed with the speed of his change, made him a face for medical weight loss at a time when many Americans were struggling in silence. In a strange way, a personal health crisis turned into a public message about survival. He became proof that change can still happen after decades of the same fight. As his health improved, the work started to shift again. He reunited with Aaron Gray, his Buck Rogers co-star, in the sci-fi thriller Nuclear Hurricane in 2007, playing Bob. Fans saw it as a familiar pairing, a quick hit of nostalgia that reminded people what they once loved about that era of television. Then, in 2009, he leaned even deeper into that world by playing Buck's dad in the pilot for Buck Rogers Begins, a project built around reboot energy and the hope of pulling a new generation into the franchise. By then, he was 66, and his renewed health made producers more comfortable with the idea that he could keep up with the physical side of those roles. Even later, when mainstream TV kept moving on, the sci-fi fandom still made room for him. In 2014, he voiced Admiral Sheehan in Star Trek, Phase 2, a fan-produced web series tied to the original universe. In 2015, he voiced Megatronus in 3 episodes of Transformers, Robots in Disguise, which connected him to younger audiences who might not even know Buck Rogers, but still recognized the strength in his voice. These were not blockbuster roles, but they mattered in a different way. They showed that a career can keep breathing inside a niche, especially when fans stay loyal. He also tried to keep his creative life bigger than acting alone. He moved into theater production and produced the Broadway revival of Amen Corner, the James Baldwin play connected to faith, family, and redemption. A later revival in 2005 kept that thread alive. It was a different kind of power. Not screen time, not fame. More like choosing what stories deserved a stage, even when your own screen roles were not as frequent. Then something unexpected happened in 2016. Gil Gerard appeared in Shane Black's The Nice Guys as Bergen Paulson, a small but memorable role beside Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. For many fans, it felt like seeing an old face in a bigger room again. That same year, he also appeared in Surge of Power, Revenge of the Sequel, as Harold Harris. It was not a return to leading man status, but it was a final stretch of visibility that felt clean and complete. Off-camera, his personal life finally steadied in a way it had not for a long time. He married Janet Gerard in 2001, and their marriage lasted 18 years. Their home life in northern Georgia was described as calmer than his earlier years, including the public turbulence around previous relationships, like his split from Lonnie Seleka in the 1980s. Janet was not just his wife. She was also the owner and designer behind Ray Guns and Rust, a shop built around fandom-inspired jewelry and artwork with dragons, skulls, and sci-fi themes. He supported her work openly and shared it on social media, and people close to them described the relationship as an anchor that helped him settle into a quieter version of himself. Their son, Gil Gerard, also pursued acting, keeping the family connection to Hollywood alive. And as Gil's later years unfolded, that father-son link became part of his story too. Not just a famous man aging, but a man being watched by his own child, who had seen both the mess and the comeback. Then the ending came fast. On December 16, 2025, Gil Gerard died at age 82 in a Georgia hospice. Janet confirmed the death in a Facebook post and described how quickly it happened, saying that from the moment they knew something was wrong to his death, that morning was only days. She said it was a rare and aggressive form of cancer. Medical details were not fully disclosed, but the speed alone stunned people. Fans woke up thinking he was still the same familiar figure posting and sharing and living. And then suddenly, he was gone. After his passing, a handwritten note circulated and hit fans right in the chest because it sounded like him and also sounded like Buck Rogers at the same time. It read, "82 years satisfying. Don't waste time on unthrilling. See you in Cosmos." It felt like a final wink toward the sci-fi universe that carried his name for decades, and also a personal goodbye from a man who had fought hard to keep living on his own terms. His legacy ended up being bigger than any single role. He had Buck Rogers, yes, and that 1979 series and movie that burned into pop culture. But he also had the long stretch after that, the years where he kept working through TV guest spots, reality hosting, voice roles, direct-to-video films, and fan-driven projects. He had a public battle with weight that turned into a documented medical turnaround with 20 pounds lost in 5 days, 80 pounds in 3 months, and 145 pounds in 10 months. He had a marriage that gave him peace. He had a final message that sounded like a man who had seen the best and worst of fame, and still wanted people to use their time wisely.